The sky above Oo was painted in soft gold and lavender, the kind of light that seems to breathe. The morning mist curled around the shattered towers of forgotten kingdoms, and the air shimmered faintly, as if the world itself were waking from a long dream. Pause. Somewhere between the mountains and the sea, a boy and a dog lay on a patch of dew-covered grass, watching the clouds drift by like sleeping giants. Finn's hat was pulled low over his eyes. Jake's paw rested lazily across his chest, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of a dog's quiet, contented snore. The breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and faraway rain, a smell that hinted at both memory and promise. The land of Oo was never silent, but this hour, before the sun fully broke the horizon, was the closest it ever came. And so begins the hidden history, the unseen roots beneath their laughter and adventure. The history that whispers in the spaces between their jokes and glimmers faintly in the eyes of those who remember a time before time. This is the story not of battles or quests, but of connection, and how it came to heal a world that once nearly forgot how to love. Long before Finn and Jake were known across the land, before songs were sung of their courage, there was stillness, an emptiness that Oo had learned to carry like an old scar. The Mushroom War had ended, leaving behind more ghosts than living souls. Forests grew through glass and steel. Rivers ran through the ruins of cities whose names no one spoke. Even the sky seemed tired, as though light itself remembered the smoke. In that stillness, the universe began again, not with grand miracles or thunderous rebirths, but with small things, a blade of grass piercing broken concrete, a bird building a nest on a collapsed tower, the faint hum of magic in the soil. Pause. Life was patient. It waited. It hoped that something kind might rise again. When Finn was born, that hope took form, a fragile form, small, human, easily wounded, yet burning, with a soul older than his years. Some said he was the last pure human, others said he was a dream of the earth itself, sent to remember what was lost. Jake, his magical brother, came from something older still, a stretching of cosmic fabric, a gift from the unknown, shaped by love and chance. No one quite remembers how they met, because perhaps they never really did. Perhaps Finn and Jake were always meant to find each other, two halves of the same song, sung into being by a universe yearning to remember harmony. As the first true dawn after an age of darkness spread across Oo, its golden rays touched everything that survived, the Candy Kingdom, rebuilt from sweetness and science. The Ice Kingdom, cold and eternal, yet hiding a story of sorrow. The Nightosphere, where shadows danced in laughter and pain, and the ruins of old humanity, where vines grew over monuments to forgotten fears. Finn and Jake wandered through these places as dreamers more than warriors. Their adventures, though wild, were also gentle lessons, reminders that the strange and the absurd could still carry truth. When they met a monster, they asked its name before raising a sword. When they fought, they laughed because even in conflict there was joy. And when they rested, they did not merely sleep, they listened. Because Oo spoke to those who were quiet enough to hear it. The trees hummed faint songs from before the war. The lakes reflected more than the sky. Sometimes they reflected memory itself. And the wind, oh, the wind was full of whispers. Whispers of those who once dreamed of flying machines and skyscrapers, who once thought the world could be controlled. Pause. But now it was free. Finn often wondered, not aloud, but deep in the soft chamber of his heart, why he existed in this world of candy people and magic beasts. Why had the world chosen him to carry a sword?
Why did the weight of the stars feel heavy on nights when he couldn't sleep?
And Jake, ever the calm one, would answer without words, stretching an arm around him and pulling him close.
That was enough.
Love often answers what logic cannot. There is a quiet truth that the sages of Oo often forget to write down. Companionship is the oldest form of magic. When two beings share laughter, a bond is created stronger than any spell. When they share silence, becomes eternal. Finn and Jake did both. And through them, Oo began to heal. Their friendship was not perfect. Jake's easygoing nature often clashed with Finn's restless need to prove himself. They argued about destiny, about adventure, about whether it was okay to just do nothing sometimes. Yet every disagreement dissolved in warmth, like sunlight through fog, each time they chose to stay. And that choosing, again and again, was what made their bond sacred. Some nights they would camp beneath a sky painted with comets. Jake would hum a tune that no one had written, and Finn would stare into the fire, lost in thought. "What do you think it all means, Jake?" he'd ask softly. Jake would tilt his head, eyes glowing gold in the firelight. "Maybe it doesn't have to mean anything, dude.
Maybe it's just
Nice that we're here," Finn would smile. Yeah, maybe that's enough. And it was. Because in that moment, two souls resting in the afterglow of the universe's chaos, Oo remembered what peace sounded like. When the stars came out, they told stories of their own. Some flickered with the memories of the old human world. Skyscrapers like candles in the night, music echoing through glass corridors, oceans heavy with ships and sorrow. Others told of newer things, magic reborn, kingdoms formed from sugar and frost, and the laughter of a boy and his brother echoing through forests. Sometimes Finn dreamed of that older world. He would see flashes of people in strange clothes, bright machines flying through the air, and a child's voice calling through static. He'd wake up with tears he couldn't explain. Jake would yawn, stretch his body into a blanket and say, "Bad dream."
Finn would nod. Just
Felt like something I used to know. In those dreams, perhaps, he touched the lineage of humankind, the endless cycle of creation and forgetting. For even in a world as whimsical as Oo, there was a quiet sadness beneath the laughter, the memory of what was lost and the hope of what might be reborn. The true dawn is not the rising of the sun. It is the awakening of understanding. And as Finn and Jake lived, learned, fought, and forgave, they became the dawn of Oo itself. The living symbol that healing is not a single act, but a continuous choosing. Finn, the embodiment of courage without hatred. Jake, the embodiment of wisdom without sorrow. Together they carried the silent philosophy that even the smallest act of kindness could reshape the world. Pause. Because Oo did not need more heroes. It needed hearts that remembered. Every time Finn helped a stranger or Jake turned an argument into a joke, something unseen shifted. The land softened. The echoes of the old war grew quieter.
even the Ice King in his madness found brief flashes of humanity again.
That was their unseen magic and the alchemy of joy, and so, beneath the soft hues of dawn, as the first full day of another age began, Finn and Jake walked down a winding path through the green hills, their shadows stretching long and gentle behind them. They didn't know where they were going, but it didn't matter. In Oo, every path eventually led to wonder. Some say the dawn never truly ends. It just keeps unfolding, moment by moment, each light softer than the last. Finn and Jake's story begins here, not in the grand battles or cosmic revelations, but in this quiet hour when the world learns how to breathe again. For the hidden history of Oo is not written in books or carved into stone. It is carried in the laughter of friends, in the stillness between heartbeats, in the warmth of one soul resting beside another, as the sun rises fully now, and the mist fades into shimmering gold. Let us close our eyes for a moment and simply feel that warmth. The story will continue, but for now, it is enough to rest in the peace of morning, to drift gently into the rhythm of Oo's awakening. Pause. Next, we drift deeper into the mysteries of what came before, into the echoes of the Great Mushroom War, and how its remnants shaped the magic that Finn and Jake would inherit. The moon hung low that night, silver, patient, and impossibly large, casting its reflection across the broken plains where the old world once stood. In the stillness, the ruins seemed to breathe. Wind moved through the hollow bones of ancient cities, carrying whispers that sounded almost like words. Pause. Some said the ruins spoke to those who listened long enough. Others said they were merely dreams that refused to fade. Finn and Jake had camped near the edge of what was once a highway, a path that no longer led anywhere. Grass pushed through the cracks of faded asphalt.
Vines crept up the twisted skeletons of old machines.
In the firelight, the world shimmered with that strange beauty that only decay can have, the beauty of endings learning to bloom again. Jake, half asleep, stretched into the shape of a pillow. Finn sat quietly beside the embers, eyes reflecting the glow. He wasn't afraid, but there was a hum in the air, a memory that pressed softly against his chest. "Do you ever feel like the ground remembers?" he whispered. Jake cracked one eye open.
"Maybe, dude."
"Maybe everything remembers, just in its own way?" Finn nodded, staring into the smoke. "Then I think it's dreaming right now. Long ago, long before the Candy Kingdom, before magic, before the playful chaos of Ooh, there was a world of humans. A world built on invention and wonder, and perhaps on a quiet hunger that never ended. They stretched towers toward the heavens, filled the air with voices. That circled the globe and chased knowledge faster than they could hold it. But like all bright fires, it burned too hot. The Mushroom War, they called it, a name too small for what it really was. It wasn't just a war of weapons. It was a war of forgetting. They forgot what it meant to belong to the world. They forgot that the earth beneath their feet was alive and that every act of harm echoed backward into the soul. Pause. When the great explosion came, that mushroom-shaped light blooming like a cruel dawn, the earth split open, and magic seeped out like blood. The line between science and sorcery blurred, and the world, in its dying gasp, became something new. And yet, not all was lost, for even in the ashes of destruction, seeds waited.
Ideas, feelings, fragments of kindness, they lingered like embers refusing to die.
From those embers Ooh would grow. From that ruin, laughter would rise again. Finn and Jake wandered the ruins often, though few others dared. There was something about those hollow places that called to them, not in words, but in emotion. The silence was full of memory. The cracked windows reflected not their faces, but something older. Flashes of people smiling, cars passing.
Lights flickering across unknown streets, sometimes.
When the night was very quiet, Finn would swear he heard music. Faint, distorted like an echo through water. He couldn't tell if it was real, or if Ooh itself was remembering. Once, while exploring an old subway tunnel half filled with roots and moss, Jake pressed his paw against a rusted wall. "Man," he murmured, "these people must have been everywhere." "Yeah," Finn said softly, "but now they're nowhere. Jake thought for a moment, then smiled. Maybe they're still here, just changed.
You ever think maybe the mushrooms, the candy people, even the monsters, maybe they're what's left of them? Like the world trying new versions of itself. Finn blinked. New versions of people?
Yeah, like a remix of existence, dude. He laughed, a warm, lazy sound that filled the dark tunnel. Finn couldn't help but laugh too, because maybe Jake was right. Maybe Ooh wasn't a replacement for what was lost, but a continuation with a different melody played on the same instrument. There is a strange peace in ruins. They teach without speaking, remind without judging. A ruin is both death and persistence. Proof that even in collapse something remains. Pause. And in that sense, the ruins of the old world are not sad. They are wise. They show that everything changes form, but nothing truly disappears. To walk among ruins is to walk within the memory of time itself.
Every crack in the wall, every fragment of glass,
Every vine reclaiming a broken tower, all of them are notes in the same eternal song. The universe never stops beginning. Finn didn't know the words for it, but he felt it. When he climbed the remains of skyscrapers swallowed by ivy or touched the melted metal of old machines, he felt both small and infinite. There was humility in that feeling, and peace. "Jake," he said one evening, "do you ever think maybe we're part of the ruins too?" Jake tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "Well, like, the old world ended, but we're still walking on it. We came from it. Maybe we're its dream." Jake yawned, eyes half-lidded. "Yeah. Or maybe it's our dream and it's still figuring itself out." They both smiled. Sometimes the simplest words held the deepest truths. After the war, when the dust settled and time began again, something unexpected happened. Magic returned. But it wasn't new. It was ancient, older than language, older than the world. It had been waiting, hidden in the folds of matter, in the silence between atoms. When the boundaries of science fractured, that old magic slipped through, mixing with the remnants of human creation. The result was Ooh, a land where everything was alive, where technology whispered spells and trees remembered dreams. Perhaps that is why Finn's sword could sing, why Jake's body could stretch beyond form, why the candy people laughed without fear of breaking. The world was no longer logical, but it was meaningful. And meaning, perhaps, is what humanity had lost in its final days. The philosophers of Ooh often spoke of this, that magic is not power. It is remembrance. It is the world remembering its own beauty. The more one loves, the stronger it becomes. In this way, Finn and Jake were both mages, though they never called themselves that. Their laughter, their kindness, their willingness to see wonder in the absurd, all of it kept the memory of goodness alive. There is a legend whispered among the ancient trees of Ooh, that beneath every root lies a voice, humming softly. These voices are the memories of the old world, sleeping beneath the soil, dreaming themselves into new forms. Sometimes they surface as flowers, sometimes as storms, sometimes as heroes. Finn once dreamed he was standing in a vast field of glass. Beneath each shard he saw faces, smiling, fading, reappearing. When he knelt and touched one, it became a mirror, reflecting Jake, the tree fort, the endless sky. He woke with tears on his cheeks, not from sadness, but from awe. For in that moment he understood nothing is ever truly gone.
It only changes shape. The ruins were not tombs, they were seeds.
Every collapsed building, every forgotten machine, every fossilized trace of the past was a vessel for future stories. And in the laughter of two brothers wandering beneath the stars, those stories continued. As dawn approached, the night's fog thinned into strands of silver. Finn sat up, rubbing his eyes. The campfire had gone out, leaving a faint smell of charcoal and rain. In the distance, the ruins glowed faintly under the first touch of morning. He felt calm, not cheerful, not sad, just still. Jake stretched awake, forming into his usual round shape. "Sleep okay, dude?" "Yeah," Finn murmured.
I dreamed of lights. I think they were people once. Jake smiled softly.
"Maybe they still are." They packed up their things, leaving the site as they had found it. No footprints, no ashes, only silence. As they walked away, a gentle wind moved through the ruins. For just a moment it sounded like laughter, faint and far away but warm. The ruins were awake again. In every world that ends, another begins, not in violence, but in remembering. The land of U is the dream of a world learning to forgive itself. Its monsters are the echoes of fear, transformed into playfulness. Its magic is sorrow rewritten as wonder. And its heroes, Finn and Jake, are not chosen by destiny, but by the universe's quiet hope that friendship might heal what war could not always. As night gives way to dawn once more, imagine the ruins fading gently into mist. The echoes become whispers, the whispers become silence, and in that silence life stirs again. For even in the deepest destruction, the heart of the world keeps beating. And so we drift onward, into the next chapter of U's hidden story, where light meets shadow, and where the ancient forces that shape the land still linger, watching, waiting, and guiding the paths of those who walk it. There are places in U where time does not move forward. It curls and folds, drifting like mist among the trees. The great forest to the east of the Candy Kingdom is one such place, a labyrinth of light and shadow, where the air hums with voices older than words. Oz. To step inside it is to step into the memory of the world itself. Finn and Jake stood at the edge of that forest one twilight evening. The horizon glowed soft amber, and the scent of moss rose thick and sweet from the earth. Behind them, the ruins they had explored lay fading into the distance. Ahead, the forest waited, patient, green, and unknowable. Jake squinted. "Man, it's like a big salad made out of time." Finn laughed softly. "Guess we're about to find out what kind of dressing it's got." And with that, they entered the forest that remembers. From the first step, the air changed. It was cooler, heavier, not with darkness, but with presence. The trees were enormous, their trunks wide as castles, their branches interwoven like fingers in prayer. Each leaf seemed to shimmer with its own quiet light. As they walked, the sound of their footsteps melted into the soil. Even their breathing seemed softer, gentler, as though the forest itself was listening. Jake's ears twitched. "You hear that?" Finn paused. "What?" Jake tilted his head.
"Everything."
"It's like the trees are whispering." He was right. The wind moving through the leaves formed patterns that felt almost intentional, almost linguistic. 1,000 tones blending into a chorus of sighs. The forest wasn't silent. It was speaking. The philosophers of U believed that the great forest was alive in a way few could understand. They said it was the mind of the planet, dreaming, remembering, growing. Every fallen leaf was a memory shed. Every root was a story reaching deeper into time. Hawes. And perhaps those who walked among those trees could hear the echoes of all who came before. As Finn and Jake ventured deeper, the forest changed colour. The golden hues of dusk gave way to an emerald twilight, where sunlight dripped through the canopy like liquid glass. Fireflies drifted lazily between the trees, pulsing in unison as if guided by an unseen rhythm. The ground beneath their feet glowed faintly. Moss infused with ancient magic. Finn brushed his hand along a trunk, feeling the warmth pulsing through it like a heartbeat. Jake stretched his arm upward, touching a branch that shimmered at his touch. "Feels alive," he said. Finn nodded. Maybe it remembers us? The deeper they went, the more the forest began to respond. Flowers opened as they passed. Vines shifted slightly out of their way. Once Finn thought he saw the shape of a face in the bark. Old, gentle, and endlessly tired, it vanished when he blinked, leaving behind only the faint sound of breathing. Long before U became what it is now, before kingdoms rose or fell, there were the first trees, ancient beings that saw the birth and death of ages. It was said that their roots touched every part of the world, carrying whispers across time. When the Mushroom War burned the surface, the first trees slept, shielding their hearts deep underground. But when the air grew calm again, they awakened slowly, cautious, wounded, and changed. The forest Finn and Jake now wandered through was a descendant of those first trees. Every branch carried memory like veins carry blood. It remembered the old human cities that once stood nearby, the lights that flickered through the smog, the laughter of children long gone. The forest remembered, and in remembering, it dreamed those memories into new forms. Glowing moss, sentient flowers, and roots that sang in the rain. Jake closed his eyes, listening. You ever think trees dream, dude? Finn smiled faintly. Maybe they dream about us, Jake chuckled. Hope we're good dreams. Finn nodded. We are tonight. And for a while, they said nothing more. They simply walked, letting the quiet pulse of the forest guide them. As the path wound deeper, they came to a clearing bathed in pale, shifting light. At its center stood a single enormous tree as wider than any castle, its bark silvered with age. Its roots spiraled into the ground like rivers frozen mid-motion. Above, its leaves shimmered between gold and green, catching the dim light and turning it into something sacred. Finn stopped. Whoa, Jake whispered. That's gotta be the oldest thing I've ever seen. They stepped closer, and a soft hum filled the air. Not a sound exactly, but a feeling, vibrating deep in their chests. The tree was alive, yes, but more than that, it was aware. And it seemed to see them. A voice came, not through the air, but through the heart. You walk within my memory, Finn froze. Jake looked around, ears twitching. Did you hear that? Finn asked. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, dude. Loud and clear, the voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was the collective memory of the forest itself, the spirit of the green, the ancient consciousness that tied all living things together. You come from the ashes of the old, yet you carry laughter, the rarest seed. Tell me, children of the new dawn, what do you seek within my heart? Finn hesitated. His hand touched his chest.
We don't really know.
Maybe we're just trying to understand where we came from. Then you have already begun to remember. Oars, the hum deepened, vibrating the soil. Images flickered through their minds. Cities of light, the war's final flash, roots twisting through rubble, new life pushing through decay. It was not frightening. It was gentle, like a memory being softly returned to its rightful owner. Then the voice spoke again. The world forgets itself over and over, but each time a few souls carry the song forward. Be kind to one another. That is the only true magic that endures. And with that, the hum faded. The clearing grew quiet again, save for the whisper of leaves. Finn exhaled.
That was beautiful, Jake smiled.
Guess even trees get poetic sometimes. Finn chuckled softly, but his eyes were distant. He felt changed, not in body, but in understanding. The forest had spoken truth, one too simple for words. The world heals through love, not through remembering facts, but through remembering feeling. They rested by the great tree for a while. The ground was soft, covered in moss that glowed faintly like starlight. Jake snored gently beside him, his body curled into a perfect circle. Finn lay awake, staring up through the branches. The stars above twinkled faintly through gaps in the canopy, like distant campfires scattered across the heavens. He thought about the ruins they'd seen, the old world beneath their feet, and the new life growing from it. Everything seemed part of the same cycle: destruction, creation, rest. Maybe that was what the forest remembered best, not the details of history, but the rhythm of it. In stillness, he realized something. The world didn't move forward linearly. It breathed. It expanded and contracted like a living chest, like Jake's slow rise and fall as he slept. The universe was not a story being written. It was a song being sung endlessly, each verse echoing the last. Pause. And he and Jake were part of that song. When he finally drifted to sleep, the forest wrapped him in its silence. In his dreams, he saw roots reaching across the stars, connecting every soul that ever lived, human, beast, candy, and beyond, in a vast web of gentle light. When morning came, it was soft and golden. The air smelled of wet bark and blooming flowers. Jake yawned, stretching himself into the shape of a hammock. "Man, that was some nap." Finn smiled sleepily.
I dreamed of the tree. It said we're part of everything. Jake nodded.
"Yeah, dude. Makes sense."
I mean, look at me. I'm part dog, part magic.
"Part snack sometimes." They both laughed quietly, their voices melting into the calm hum of the forest. Before leaving, Finn placed his hand on the trunk of the great tree one last time.
Thank you, he whispered.
A breeze rustled through the leaves, a whisper in return. Not words, but understanding. They walked out of the forest slowly, the light growing brighter with every step. Behind them, the trees closed their paths once more, sealing the memory until the next wanderer came to listen. There are forests in every world, not always of wood and leaf, but of memory, of heart. They are the places where time pauses, where life gathers to remember itself. To walk within them is to listen, and to listen is to love. Finn and Jake left the forest lighter than they had entered it. The world had spoken not in riddles or commands, but in calm truth that all things are connected, and that kindness is the thread holding it all together. Pause. As they stepped into the open light once more, the horizon shimmered with distant colors, the faint outline of something vast and glowing rising beyond the plains. It was calling to them softly, like a song carried by the wind. Next, we follow that light into the ancient ruins of the crystal citadel, where time's reflections reveal the forgotten guardians of U. Far to the north of the forest, beyond the valleys where the grass hums and the air glows faintly blue, stands a place few dare to visit. It rises from the ocean like a memory made solid, a towering structure of crystal and light suspended between worlds. Pause. It is said that the citadel of time was not built, but grown, a seed of eternity planted in the sea at the dawn of all things. The air around it bends softly, rippling like water. Some who look upon it swear they see their own reflection stretching endlessly, not their face but their moments, replaying like waves lapping the shore of existence. The citadel does not guard time. It is time breathing, remembering, forgetting, and being reborn with every heartbeat of the cosmos. One morning, as mists rolled low across the coast, Finn and Jake stood before it. "Whoa," Finn whispered, his voice small against the soundless vastness. "It's like the sky decided to grow a spine." Jake tilted his head, golden eyes wide.
Man, I can feel it buzzing in my teeth. The citadel shimmered, its surface catching the sunlight and bending it into rainbows that danced across the sea.
Somewhere deep within, a pulse echoed, slow, deliberate, ancient, and together they stepped forward. As they crossed the water, stepping on stones that seemed to appear only when they needed them, the air grew thick with quiet. Each step felt lighter, as though gravity were losing interest. Finn's reflection on the surface changed, sometimes older, sometimes younger, sometimes not human at all. Jake's shape rippled like a mirage, his body shifting through forms he'd never taken before. Dude, Jake said, I think time's messing with my vibe. Finn smiled softly. Maybe time's just showing us all the vibes we've ever been. The citadel loomed closer, immense, yet weightless. Its walls were not solid. They flowed, translucent like frozen light in motion. When they touched its surface, it was warm, pulsing faintly, alive. The gate did not open. It simply recognized them. A soft tone rang through the air, and suddenly they were inside, surrounded by corridors of shifting light, where past and future twisted into one another like rivers meeting at sea. Inside, the citadel was endless. Every wall, every floor was made of mirrored crystal, and within each reflection something moved. Memories, moments, echoes. Finn saw flashes of himself, fighting monsters, helping friends, laughing under starlight. Jake saw himself as a pup, as a father, as a being made of pure color. Each vision was both true and impossible, and then the reflections turned their heads. From within the mirrors stepped figures of light, not threatening, but solemn, calm. They were the guardians of reflection, the silent caretakers of the citadel. Their forms shifted constantly, sometimes human, sometimes animal, sometimes pure energy. They spoke without sound. Welcome, children of renewal. Finn bowed his head slightly. We didn't mean to intrude.
We're just trying to understand. Understanding is the only reason time exists, said the voices, blending into one tone.
You walk within the river of what was and what might be. Do you wish to see where it flows? Finn hesitated. Jake nodded. Yeah, hit us with the deluxe tour, dudes. The floor beneath them shimmered, and suddenly they were weightless, drifting upward through vast chambers of crystal. As they rose, the guardians moved alongside them, their forms leaving trails of starlight in their wake. They came to a vast open hall where no ceiling could be seen.
A river flowed through the air, not of water, but of light.
It glimmered with scenes that moved like dreams, moments of birth, laughter, loss, and rebirth, all woven together in endless succession. This is, Finn whispered.
Everything?
Yes, said the guardians. The river of time, every world, every life, every choice reflected upon itself. It does not flow in one direction. It spirals, endlessly returning, endlessly changing. Jake floated closer, watching the lights flicker.
So like...
It's all happening at once? In truth, said the voice, it is all happening always. Finn stared into the river. He saw flashes of his own life, but not as he remembered it. He saw himself as a child being found by Jake's parents, crying under the stars. He saw himself older, scarred, holding a sword shaped like a heartbeat. He saw ooh change around him, kingdoms rise and fall, friends vanish, new ones appear. Then he saw something stranger, a boy like him, but not him, wearing a red hat, walking through a different world. Who
is that?
Finn asked quietly. Another echo of the same soul, replied the voice. Every life you live leaves a reflection in eternity. You are all connected, threads in the same tapestry, Finn swallowed softly. So we've been here before? Many times.
You will be again.
But this time, you remember to love. The Citadel, for all its grandeur, was not a place of judgment. It did not measure moments by value or consequence. Instead, it showed that time itself was compassionate.
Every mistake, every sorrow, every small kindness, all of it was held in equal reverence.
Nothing was wasted, nothing forgotten. Pause. Time, the Guardians explained, was not a ruler, it was a gardener. It grew every seed, even those buried in darkness. Some took centuries to bloom, some entire worlds. But all were cherished. Even endings, they said, are beginnings in disguise. Jake tilted his head. So what about when things get bad?
Like real bad wars, monsters, heartbreak. That stuff just
Grows too? Yes, said the light. For without shadow, light would have no shape. The universe needs both to remember itself. Finn thought of the ruins, of the forest, of the laughter he and Jake shared under endless skies.
everything, even the pain, felt like part of a single pattern.
And time isn't a line, he murmured. It's a circle. Closer still, said the voice. It is a heartbeat. They came to a final chamber, silent, immense, with a single mirror at its center. It was not made of glass or crystal, but of pure stillness. When Finn and Jake approached, their reflections wavered. Then, slowly, the mirror filled with images, not of who they were, but of everyone they had ever touched. Finn saw Princess Bubblegum smiling softly, the Ice King, lonely but human, BMO dancing in eternal joy, Marceline singing under moonlight. He saw every creature he'd ever helped, every friend who'd once laughed beside him. Each one glowed faintly, connected by threads of light. Jake's reflection filled with his family, Lady Rainicorn, his pups, and countless friends. For a moment, even the Citadel seemed to sigh, as if warmed by the sight. Then, all the images merged into one vast light, the essence of Wu itself. This is your legacy, said the Guardians. Not your battles, not your victories, but your presence. You are part of time's memory now. You will fade, yes, but your kindness will remain. Finn's eyes shone. That's all we ever wanted, I think. Jake smiled, wrapping an arm around him.
Yeah, dude, that's the good stuff. The mirror dimmed.
The chamber brightened. The Citadel began to hum, a sound like thousands of gentle heartbeats merging into one. When they emerged back into the daylight, the sea was calm, the horizon endless. The Citadel shimmered behind them, already fading into mist, as if it were returning to dream. Neither spoke for a long while. They simply walked, their reflections gliding beside them in the water. Finally, Finn said quietly, "Do you think we'll remember all of that?" Jake smiled. "Maybe not with our heads, but yeah, with our hearts." They walked until the Citadel disappeared completely, leaving only the sound of waves, soft, rhythmic, eternal. There are places in every universe that exist only to remind us that nothing is ever truly lost. The Citadel of Time is one of those, a gentle reminder that life is not a race toward an ending, but a circle of beginnings, over and over, each one teaching us how to love a little more. Pause. As Finn and Jake moved south again, the sky deepened into violet, and stars began to pulse above them. Slow, patient, kind. Somewhere ahead lay the glowing plains of the Nightosphere's border, where light and shadow kissed and traded secrets. The brothers smiled, their footsteps falling in rhythm with the waves. The Citadel faded behind them, but its music lingered, soft, infinite, echoing in the quiet space between heartbeats. The air was different beyond the horizon, not dark, but thick with color. Shades of indigo and amethyst swirled together, forming a sky that breathed slowly, like a sleeping creature. Beneath it stretched a plain of mist and glimmering stones, each one glowing faintly from within, as if lit by forgotten memories. This was the border of the nightosphere, where dreams went when they forgot they were dreams. Pause. The place was not evil, as many whispered. It was ancient. It existed before fear had a name, before the word shadow meant something to hide from. It was where emotions learned to become themselves. Sorrow learned to be soft, and love learned to endure. Finn and Jake stood at the edge of this strange twilight land. Jake squinted into the mist.
Man, this place gives me the heebie-jeebies.
But like in a comfy way, Finn nodded. Yeah, it's like a nightmare that knows it's trying to help you. As they stepped forward, the mist swirled around their legs, cool and whispering. Each breath they took echoed softly, as though the air were alive. The ground beneath them shifted, one moment solid, the next liquid, like walking on memory itself. They began to hear sounds, not voices exactly, but murmurs, fragments of feelings, a child's laughter, the rustle of 1,000 wings, the sigh of an old friend saying goodbye. The nightosphere was full of these echoes, the subconscious songs of all who had ever dreamed. What are they? Finn asked quietly. Jake listened, his eyes half closed.
I think they're people's feelings, dude.
Like all the stuff they never said out loud. The mist parted, revealing a vast lake of glass. Across its surface moved shadows shaped like people, some radiant, some dim. They floated as though caught between waking and sleep. And then a figure emerged. Tall, slender, her hair long and dark as ink. She glowed faintly red and her eyes shimmered like garnet stars. Marceline? Finn breathed.
But it wasn't her.
It was her memory. The dream that remembered being her. The dream, Marceline smiled faintly. You came far, Finn the human, Jake the dog. Her voice was soft, half-sung. Do you know where you are? Finn looked around, unsure. The nightosphere?
Not quite, she said.
This is the border of all dreams, the place where our shadows rest when we wake. She reached out a hand, translucent, glowing.
Everything that ever frightened you, every joy you ever forgot, sleeps here. Jake tilted his head.
Even like snack cravings and embarrassing memories, Marceline laughed, a low, melodic sound that shimmered through the air.
Especially those. Then her expression softened.
You're here because time sent you. The Citadel opened the door. You've walked through eternity. Now you must walk through yourself. Finn's eyes met hers.
Through myself?
Yes, she said, because before you can understand the world, you must remember the parts of you you've left behind. The dream. Marceline stepped back, her figure dissolving into the mist. The lake beneath them rippled, and suddenly they were falling. They landed softly on a floor of black glass, surrounded by stars that pulsed like distant hearts. Finn looked down and saw his own reflection staring back, but the eyes were different. They were full of every emotion he'd ever refused to feel. Fear, loneliness, regret. Jake appeared beside him, his reflection stretching infinitely into the dark. Dude, what is this place? Finn whispered. I think it's the part of us we don't visit. From the reflection rose shapes, tall, shadowy, but gentle. They had Finn's silhouette, Jake's voice, their laughter, their anger. They weren't enemies. They were memories. Forgotten selves, one of them spoke, voice trembling like wind across a canyon. Why did you leave us? Finn's heart tightened. He recognized the voice, his younger self, the boy who once feared being alone.
I didn't leave, Finn whispered. I just
grew up. And in growing, you forgot how to rest, said the shadow. Jake's reflection smiled sadly. Guess we've been running so much, we forgot what stillness feels like. The shadows stepped closer, wrapping them in warmth. They weren't cold nor heavy. They were the soft weight of honesty, the gentle acceptance of every past version of themselves. In the stillness of the nightosphere, they began to understand. Darkness is not punishment. It is the mirror where the soul practices being whole, for what is light without the shade that gives it shape? What is joy if sorrow cannot exist beside it? The nightosphere whispered these truths into their hearts. That pain is the teacher of patience. That silence is the language of healing. That even fear, when embraced, becomes gentleness. Finn sat upon the black glass, eyes closed, breathing slowly. The darkness pulsed around him like a heartbeat. All this time, he murmured, I thought being a hero meant fighting the dark. But maybe it means listening to it. Jake stretched, sighing peacefully. Yeah, dude. The dark's not out to get us. It just wants to hang out. The shadows rippled, smiling. For the first time, the nightosphere's air felt warm. From the horizon rose a bridge of silver light, thin as a spider's thread, yet strong as belief. It arched across the vast lake, connecting the world of dreams to something beyond. At its end shimmered a faint glow, like morning waiting to be born. This is the path back, said the voice of Marceline again, distant but kind. But every step you take, you must leave behind a fear. Finn looked at the bridge, then at Jake. You ready? Jake smiled. Only one way to find out. They stepped onto the bridge. With each step, the darkness beneath them stirred. And with each step, something heavy fell away. Finn let go of the fear of being forgotten. Jake released the worry of losing those he loved. The air grew lighter. Their reflections brightened, blending into the stars above. Below them, the shadows waved softly, whispering farewell. We will not follow, but we will always be within you. Halfway across, Finn paused.
Jake? Yeah, buddy?
Finn smiled faintly.
I think this isn't about saving O anymore, Jake nodded.
Nah, I think it's about remembering what oo means. They stood in silence, the stars flickering beneath their feet. The bridge led them toward a horizon of soft gold, the dawn of another realm. When they reached the end, the world unfolded like a slow exhale. The air was no longer heavy, the colors no longer sharp. The ground beneath them was soft grass, dew-covered, humming with life. Above, a new sky shimmered, threaded with gentle gold and lavender. Finn turned, but the bridge was gone. The nightosphere had faded into mist, yet he felt no loss, only gratitude. Jake inhaled deeply.
Smells like pancakes and redemption. Finn laughed quietly. That's actually perfect. They sat together on the grass, the wind combing through their hair.
Every breath felt lighter, every sound softer. They could still feel the nightosphere within them. But now it wasn't a shadow. It was part of their light. Sometimes the most important journey is not outward, but inward. The nightosphere, in its infinite silence, taught them that darkness is not the end of light, but its secret beginning. As they rested, Finn looked toward the horizon. Far ahead, mountains shimmered like blue crystal, the land of echoes where forgotten worlds whispered to each other through wind and time. A new chapter was waiting. Jake leaned back, eyes closing.
You think we'll ever stop walking, bro?
Finn smiled softly. Maybe when the road learns our names. The wind carried their laughter away. Slow, gentle, eternal. The dawn arrived not with brilliance, but with tenderness. It unfolded like silk, spilling pale gold across the dew. Finn and Jake rose from their rest as the last mist of the nightsphere faded behind them. The air was cool, bright, and new, like the first breath after waking from a long dream. Before them stretched the land of echoes, a place of endless valleys and whispering mountains, where even thought seemed to carry weight. The peaks shimmered faintly, as if carved from blue crystal, and the wind that wound through them sang softly, the voices of those who had once crossed this way. Finn adjusted his pack. These mountains look alive. Jake nodded slowly.
Maybe they are, dude. Maybe they're just...
Listening. Pause. Every step they took was answered by a faint resonance, their footfalls repeating softly from the cliffs around them, as though the world itself was speaking back. The land of echoes was known, in the oldest tales, as the Heart of Remembrance. It was said that every sound ever made, every word ever spoken, still lived here, not as noise, but as feeling. As they walked, the valleys opened wider, filled with shimmering air. Sometimes Finn thought he heard laughter in the wind, familiar, fleeting. At other times, a faint hum of music, like an ancient lullaby. "Hey," Jake said after a while. "You hear that too, right?"
Like, it's not just me losing my noodle.
Finn smiled softly.
I hear it, I think.
The mountains remember, and indeed they did, for in the land of echoes, memory had form. The mountains grew taller from the songs sung to them, from the words of hope and sorrow that had washed over their stone faces for millennia. Even the smallest pebble hummed faintly with forgotten stories. When the wind shifted, they heard something that made them pause, the faint echo of their own laughter. But not from now. It was from long ago, a day of bright skies and careless joy. Finn's voice high and young. Jake's giggle rolling through sunlight. It drifted across the valley like a ghost that smiled as it passed. "Guess we've been here before," Jake whispered. Finn's eyes softened. Maybe not here, but somewhere like it. Somewhere that remembers. As afternoon melted toward evening, they found it. A massive structure half buried in stone. The Temple of Resonance, as the old songs had called it. Its pillars were carved from clear quartz, each one vibrating gently with the hum of centuries. Inside, the air shimmered with quiet sound, not music, not speech, but something older, the vibration of pure memory. Finn placed his hand upon a pillar, and the stone rippled with light.
Instantly, the room filled with echoes. Voices layered upon voices like an ocean of sound. Whispers of heroes long gone.
Cries of joy and grief. The faint, lilting hum of lullabies sung by unseen mothers. Jake stepped back, ears twitching. "Whoa, it's like the world's biggest mixtape." Finn smiled faintly. "Yeah, but every song is someone's soul." Pause. They stood for a long time, simply listening. The echoes were not loud. They were soft, like the murmur of waves. Each tone seemed to carry a story, a memory preserved not in words, but in vibration. It was said that the temple could show you the sound of your own heart if you listened closely enough. Finn closed his eyes. The hum grew warmer, deeper. Slowly, the sounds began to separate, until he heard one note more clearly than all the rest. It was faint, but steady, like the pluck of a single string beneath the noise of eternity, and it came from within. When Finn opened his eyes again, the temple had changed. The walls were no longer stone, but light, and in the air floated threads of golden sound, stretching endlessly outward. Jake's voice was distant now, though still near.
"Dude, what's happening?" Finn didn't know.
He could only feel it. The hum that resonated deep within his chest, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. He realized then that the sound he was hearing wasn't coming from outside. It was his own resonance, the pure vibration of his being echoing through the world. And around him, all the other sounds, the echoes of ooh, the laughter of friends, the sigh of wind, were in harmony with it. The universe was not silent. It was singing, pause. And that song, he understood now, was made of connection. Every life added its own note to the cosmic melody. Some were loud and brief.
Others soft but enduring. None were forgotten.
Not even the quietest heart. Finn whispered, "So,
this is what the world sounds like when it remembers." The sound answered him, not with words, but with warmth. A pulse of light that filled his chest with peace. Jake's hand touched his shoulder.
You feel that too?" Finn nodded slowly.
Yeah, like...
Everything we've ever loved is still here. Time in the temple didn't move the way it did elsewhere.
Hours might have passed, or seconds.
The golden hum grew softer, until the light dimmed again to the cool blue of twilight. Finn turned to Jake, smiling faintly. "You know what's weird?" Jake raised an eyebrow.
Everything?
Finn chuckled.
Yeah, that too, but I think echoes aren't just sounds that bounce back. I think they're things trying to understand us, Jake blinked, thoughtful.
Like they're listening back?
Yeah, Finn said softly.
Maybe the universe echoes because it wants to feel connected too. For a moment, they were silent, hearing their own words drift through the air and return softer. Like the world whispering, "I hear you." They stepped out of the temple as dusk fell, the sky now a swirl of lavender and gold. The peaks glowed faintly, as though they too had listened and learned. That night, they camped beneath an overhang of stone that hummed softly with ancient resonance. The stars above them pulsed gently in rhythm with the earth's quiet breath. Finn looked upward. You ever think maybe the stars are just really old echoes? Jake smiled, tail flicking lazily. Wouldn't surprise me.
Everything's talking to everything, dude. We just never stop long enough to notice. The air shimmered faintly,
and for a moment they could hear something in the distance. Faint music, like a harp played by wind. The land itself was singing, and beneath it all a voice, neither male nor female, ancient as moonlight, whispered through the air. Every sound is a soul remembering itself. Finn's eyes softened. That's beautiful, Jake murmured. It's true. Pause. They sat in silence, letting the echoes wash over them like a tide. In those moments, the universe didn't feel vast or lonely. It felt intimate, like an old friend breathing beside them, humming softly to remind them they were not alone. By morning, the wind had changed. It carried a different tone, higher, faster, alive with movement. The path curved upward into the peaks toward a narrow pass carved by centuries of song. At its center stood a massive arch of stone open to the sky. Wind poured through it like invisible water, creating a tone so pure that the air shimmered with it. Finn stood before it in awe.
The gate of wind, he whispered.
Jake smiled faintly. You can almost hear the whole world breathing through it. They approached, and as they did, the wind's voice changed, subtly but clearly. It began to form patterns, syllables, music. Finn closed his eyes, listening. The words that came were not in any language he knew, but he understood them all the same. To move forward, you must become the echo. You must carry memory with gentleness. The air pressed softly against them, not pushing back, but inviting them through. They stepped into the arch, and in that instant, Everything grew still. The sound faded, and for a heartbeat there was only quiet. Then came the faint rush of wind, now behind them, carrying their laughter away like a message to the stars. The land of echoes had given them something no sword or spell could grant. The gift of remembrance without weight, to remember but not ache, to listen but not be lost in the noise. Every sound that ever was still moved through the universe, not as burden, but as harmony or pause. As Finn and Jake crossed the final ridge, the mountains glowed softly behind them, singing farewell. Ahead lay a plain of twilight and colour, where the sky rippled like silk, the threshold to a place even older than time. Jake stretched, smiling. "What do you think's next, bro?" Finn looked into the horizon, eyes calm. "Maybe." The heart of the world, the wind sighed softly through the stone behind them, whispering their names once, then fading into peace. The horizon unfolded like an ocean of colour. The sky no longer stayed still. It rippled and breathed, as though the fabric of reality itself was sighing. Finn and Jake descended from the whispering peaks of the land of echoes and entered a vast plain where the ground shimmered like glass and light floated above it in drifting petals. This was the heart of creation, the place where ideas took shape before finding a world to live in. Some called it the forge of existence, others simply the breath. There was no wind, no sound, yet everything pulsed with life. The air trembled faintly with possibility, as if it were constantly deciding what it wanted to become. Jake blinked, tail flicking nervously. "Dude, I think the ground just thought about being grass." Finn smiled softly, watching blades of emerald sprout where Jake's paws touched. "Maybe it's waiting for us to imagine it." They stepped forward, and the world shifted. With each breath they took, colors moved, textures formed. It was like walking inside a dream that wanted to be real. Pause. The heart of creation was not a place of rules. It was a field of potential, endless, radiant, and fragile. In the distance, floating structures shimmered, fragments of half-formed mountains, glimpses of rivers that bent upward into the sky, forests that flickered like candlelight. Everything here existed halfway between thought and form. Finn knelt and touched the glass-like ground. It was warm, pulsing faintly. For a moment, an image appeared beneath his hand. A flicker of his childhood home, a small tree house among clouds. Then it faded, dissolving into light. Jake whistled low.
"So this place..."
"It makes what we think." Finn nodded slowly. "Or maybe it shows what's already inside us." They walked for what felt like hours, though time had no meaning here. Every step revealed something new. A mountain that sang, a river of light, a flower blooming from pure color. Each creation shimmered for a moment, then returned to stillness.
As if shy to exist too long. The heart of creation wasn't a factory. It was a meditation. In the center of the plain,
They found them, tall, radiant figures moving slowly through the light. Their bodies were translucent, filled with glowing constellations, and their eyes held no pupils, only starlight. They were neither gods nor mortals, but something between, the architects of breath. They moved not with purpose, but with rhythm, gestures that seemed to shape the air itself. Each motion left ripples that became forms, a mountain here, a bird there, a thought taking shape and dissolving again. Finn and Jake approached with quiet awe. One of the beings turned toward them. Its face was serene, its voice like wind through soft reeds. "Children of memory," it said, "you walk within the dreaming core. Do you seek to build?" Finn hesitated. "We just want to understand."
how does all this exist?
The architect raised a hand, tracing a spiral in the air. Existence breathes.
Every breath is a choice.
Every choice becomes a world. Jake blinked. So you're saying the universe is like...
A big inhale and exhale?
Exactly that. Another architect glided closer, voice like distant thunder wrapped in silk. Everything that ever was began as a whisper in this place. Before the Lich, before magic, before even light, there was a longing. And that longing became the first spark. Finn looked around, eyes wide. Then this. This is where Oo was born? The being smiled gently.
And every other Oo that ever could be. Pause. Finn felt something stirring in his chest. A warmth that wasn't from the light, but from understanding.
He thought of all the people he'd met, all the adventures he and Jake had lived. Every victory, every loss, all of it had come from that same spark of longing. Maybe creation wasn't about power or purpose. Maybe it was about feeling. He turned to Jake. What if everything we do, even the small stuff, changes this place? Jake's eyes softened.
Yeah, man. Like maybe every time we laugh or cry or dream.
The heart hears it. And suddenly Finn realized that the architects weren't separate from them. The beings shimmered faintly as though their shapes reflected him and Jake both. They were creators, yes, but so were they. Every being that had ever lived was a builder of worlds. Through their thoughts, their fears, their love, to exist, whispered one architect, is to sculpt with emotion. The plane around them shifted. Mountains rose like waves. Rivers of gold flowed from unseen hands. And at the center of it all, a single heartbeat pulsed. Deep, slow, eternal. It began as a vibration. Subtle, low. Like the sound of distant thunder under the sea. The light above them dimmed, the colors deepened. From beneath the glassy ground, something enormous stirred. The architects fell silent. Finn and Jake watched as a vast sphere of light rose from the center of the plain, luminous and alive. It pulsed once, twice, in rhythm with Finn's heartbeat. Jake whispered, "What is that?" "The heart," said the nearest architect, "the breath of all existence."
It beats for every life, every moment, every dream that ever was. Finn stepped closer.
As he did, visions rippled across its surface, countless worlds, infinite lives. He saw himself again and again, in endless forms, a warrior, a wanderer, a child, a spirit of air. Each life shimmered for a moment, then merged back into the glow. It was overwhelming, yet peaceful. He understood then that existence was not a story told once, but an endless poem recited in infinite voices, each being a verse, each world a line. Jake placed a paw against the light. "Feels warm."
Like it knows us, Finn nodded.
"Maybe it does. Maybe it's been waiting for us to listen." Pause. As they stood before the heart, the air trembled, and a sound emerged, so deep and ancient it bypassed language altogether. It was not heard with ears, but felt through the bones. The architects bowed their heads.
"The first word," one whispered.
The sound that began everything. Finn closed his eyes and listened. The tone wasn't a command or a name. It was a promise, a whisper that said, "Be gentle, for you are made of me." The vibration passed through him, filling his chest with warmth. He thought of every person he had ever met. Princess Bubblegum's precision, Marceline's melancholy, BMO's wonder, the Ice King's sadness. All of it, every contradiction, was part of this single breath of creation. Jake exhaled softly. So all of us, but even the weird parts, were just the universe trying out different versions of love. Finn smiled. "Yeah, I think that's it." The architects shimmered with approval, their forms fading slightly, as though their work was done. Remember, they said, creation is not about control. It is about listening. Even the smallest kindness changes the shape of the cosmos. The heart pulsed again. Brighter now. The architects began to dissolve into starlight, merging with the rhythm of existence. The plain beneath them rippled, folding into rivers of color that led toward a single glowing path on the horizon. Finn turned to Jake. "I think it's time to move on." Jake smiled.
Yeah, man.
"Before we start imagining something weird, like talking sandwiches." They laughed softly, and as they did, the world responded.
Laughter spread through the light like ripples in water, creating tiny stars above them, each one pulsing gently. The heart seemed to hum in approval, echoing their joy. Finn looked back one last time.
The architects were gone, the light dimming to a soft shimmer. The heart of creation continued to beat, eternal and kind, whispering its wordless lullaby into all worlds. See, as they followed the glowing path forward, the air cooled, and the light turned silvery, the gentle hue of evening in a place without sun. Finn spoke softly.
You ever think the universe might be dreaming us?
Jake thought for a moment. Maybe, dude. Or maybe we're dreaming it right back. They smiled, walking side by side, their footsteps leaving trails of gold in the air. Behind them, the heart pulsed one last time, a farewell, a benediction. Creation, they had learned, was not something that happened once. It was happening now with every breath, every heartbeat, every quiet act of wonder. And as they disappeared into the twilight horizon, the world seemed to sigh in contentment, its song continuing, slow and infinite oars. The light of the heart faded behind them, replaced by a stillness so vast it felt like time itself had paused to listen. Finn and Jake walked along the glowing path until the air around them grew thin and quiet, like the hush before a dream begins. At first, it seemed there was nothing. No color, no ground, not even air. Only the faint echo of their footsteps, slowly fading until even that was gone. They floated more than walked, surrounded by a black, so complete it shimmered. This was not darkness as mortals know it. It was the void between worlds, the gentle space that holds everything together, the silence between the notes of creation's song. Finn whispered, "Jake."
Are we still moving?
Jake looked around, his eyes reflecting invisible stars.
I don't know, bro. I think we're just existing. They drifted through the stillness.
And though it seemed empty, it wasn't frightening. The void felt soft, like resting in an infinite night sky, wrapped in a blanket made of quiet itself. Oars. Most beings fear nothingness, the absence of form, of self, of meaning. But here, Finn began to understand that nothingness was not a void to run from. It was a space to rest in. The longer they stayed, the more he noticed the subtle textures within the darkness. Faint ripples of memory, echoes of worlds long gone, dreams that had ended but still hummed quietly in the deep. It wasn't dead. It was waiting. Finn reached out, fingers brushing what looked like starlight frozen in water. It rippled gently, showing an image, a distant memory of him and Jake sitting under a tree, watching clouds drift over Ooh. The image flickered, then faded back into the black. Jake watched, eyes wide. "Whoa, it's like this place keeps memories." Finn nodded. "Yeah, like it holds the moments that fell through the cracks." The void, he realized, was not an end. It was the pause that gives endings meaning. Every story needs silence to breathe. Pause. They drifted further, and slowly, faint shapes, began to emerge. Shadows of old worlds, half-formed and half-forgotten. A city of glass towers crumbling into mist. A sea that shimmered with unspoken names. Figures moved within them, faint, translucent, like echoes of beings that never came to be. Jake shivered. "Dude, are those ghosts?" Finn shook his head softly. "Not ghosts, maybe."
Ideas that never got finished. The beings in the mist seemed peaceful, not lost.
They looked toward Finn and Jake without fear, as though recognizing them. Some bowed their heads, others smiled faintly before fading again into nothing. The brothers felt a deep calm settle over them. These weren't remnants of sorrow, but of potential. Dreams that had chosen to rest rather than manifest. It reminded Finn of how, sometimes, he'd wake from a dream he couldn't remember, but still feel something beautiful lingering. A softness, a warmth. Maybe those forgotten dreams lived here, or in the distance. A faint glow appeared, like a lantern swaying slowly in a midnight sea. Drawn to it, Finn and Jake drifted closer until they saw the source. A tall figure made of translucent white light, seated upon nothing, surrounded by circles of quiet energy. Its face was calm, eyes closed, hands resting in its lap. It breathed slowly, and with each breath the void rippled, waves of stillness flowing outward. Finn approached softly.
"Hey, are you the one who keeps this place?"
The being opened its eyes, vast, gentle, filled with infinite patience. Its voice came not through sound, but through vibration.
"I am the keeper of silence. I tend to what remains unseen." Jake tilted his head. "You mean—"
Like cleaning up the leftovers of the universe? A soft smile.
"Not leftovers, friend. Resting seeds. Even endings are beginnings waiting to be heard." Finn nodded slowly.
"So this place isn't dead?"
"It's just resting. All things must rest," said the keeper. "Even light must close its eyes." The being's gaze deepened.
"You carry creation's breath within you. But tell me, do you know what happens when creation forgets to listen?" Finn hesitated. "I guess it starts to make noise without meaning." "Yes." The keeper's smile faded slightly.
"Noise becomes chaos. Chaos becomes despair. Even gods forget to be still."
"That is why the void exists. To remind all things how to be quiet again." Oz. The keeper lifted its hand, and the darkness around them shimmered into 1,000 faintly glowing motes. Tiny fragments of light, like fireflies in a moonless field. "Each of these," said the keeper, "is a heartbeat of silence. Every moment someone stops to breathe, to listen, to be kind, another star appears in the void." Finn watched in awe. The lights pulsed softly, forming constellations that drifted like jellyfish through the black sea. Jake whispered, "So, when we rest, we're actually helping the universe?" "Yes, rest is creation's gentlest form. It lets what was loud become music again." Finn thought about their adventures, the battles, the chaos, the laughter.
So much energy, so much motion.
He had always believed life meant movement, but now he understood. Motion without rest was just spinning. Stillness wasn't the opposite of life. It was what made life possible. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, letting the quiet sink in. For the first time in a long while, he felt utterly weightless, not heroic,
Not responsible. Just
present. Pause. When he opened his eyes, he saw a pool of mirrored darkness in front of him. The keeper gestured toward it. "Look and remember who you are when no one else is watching." Finn stepped closer. At first, the mirror showed nothing. Then, slowly, it began to shimmer, revealing his reflection. But it wasn't just him. It showed every version of him that had ever existed, every choice, every timeline. He saw the boy who stayed home, the warrior who fell, the wanderer who found peace. Each version smiled at him softly, their eyes filled with quiet understanding. The keeper's voice was like wind in a cave. Every reflection you see here is real. Each has lived a life, dreamed a dream.
None are wrong and none are lost.
They return here when their stories rest. Finn's throat tightened.
So they're all part of me?
They are you, just as you are them. You are the echo that keeps the song alive. Jake padded closer, looking into the pool. He saw himself too, and in countless forms, a hero, a father, a cloud drifting in the wind. Huh, guess I've been a lot of weird stuff. The keeper chuckled softly. We all have oars. The mirror rippled, and suddenly the darkness expanded outward, revealing what lay beyond, a vast lattice of light stretching into eternity, worlds upon worlds, each glowing softly in the endless night. Finn and Jake floated above it, feeling like dust motes caught in a sunbeam. The keeper rose beside them, voice low and steady. This is what the void protects. The infinite weave of all that is, was, and could be. It looks like nothing because it holds everything. Finn reached out, watching the lights pulse in rhythm. So this is infinity. No, said the keeper gently. Infinity is the absence of an ending. What you see is love expressed in all directions. Jake tilted his head.
Love, yes, love is not emotion alone.
It is the force that refuses to vanish even here. Every choice born from care, even the smallest, becomes light in this darkness. The brothers floated in silence. Around them the lattice pulsed softly, like the breathing of a sleeping universe, oars. After what felt like days, or maybe lifetimes, Finn turned back to the keeper.
How do we leave this place?
The keeper smiled faintly. You do not leave silence? You carry it. It raised a hand, and the lights began to draw inward, swirling softly around Finn and Jake. Go now, said the keeper. Take the stillness with you. Wherever you travel, remember that even in chaos, the void hums beneath, waiting to soothe what trembles. The brothers bowed. Thank you, Finn whispered. Jake grinned. Yeah, thanks, big quiet guy. The keeper's laughter was soft as falling snow. Farewell, children of Oo. May your dreams hum in harmony with the breath of all worlds. Then the darkness folded inward. The stars flickered once, twice, and the void became light oars. When Finn opened his eyes again, he was lying in a meadow. The air smelled of night-blooming flowers. The sky above was deep indigo filled with quiet stars. Jake stretched beside him, tail wagging lazily.
Man, that was wild.
Think we were dreaming? Finn smiled, closing his eyes again. Maybe, but if it was, it felt real enough to matter. They lay there in silence, listening to the wind moving through unseen trees. Somewhere far behind them, the keeper tended to the void. Somewhere ahead, a new horizon waited. Between those two, there was only peace, and as the night deepened, the brothers drifted, not toward adventure, not toward destiny, but toward a simple truth, that to rest was also to live, oars. A gentle hush descends upon the night above Oo. The sky is a sea of velvet blue, where each star trembles like the heartbeat of some ancient god still half asleep. Pause. The wind flows through the empty towers and overgrown meadows, carrying whispers of old songs that were once sung when the world was young. Songs that only the stars remember. Somewhere beneath that canopy of distant fires, Finn lies upon a patch of glowing moss, his hands folded behind his head. Jake drifts beside him in a lazy sprawl, his body stretched and folded into the soft earth. Around them the world hums quietly, 1,000 unseen creatures breathing in rhythm as if the planet itself is dreaming. The night is wide and alive, yet deeply still. "Do you ever think," Finn murmurs softly, "that the stars are watching us the same way we watch them?" Jake's eyes half open, golden and heavy with drowsy amusement.
"Maybe they are," he says.
"Maybe they're watching the watchers. Maybe it's all one big mirror." Finn chuckles faintly, though there's a question lingering there. A wondering that never quite. Settles. Above them, a single comet sweeps across the heavens, painting a silver arc that slowly fades into eternity. Pause. And so begins the 9th chapter of their hidden story, the Song of the Stars. When the first beings rose from the post-apocalyptic silence of the Mushroom War, they looked to the stars for meaning. The wizards, the elementals, and the wanderers all spoke of constellations that told stories, patterns of fate stretched across the cosmos, but no one truly remembered who had first taught the stars to sing. Finn, however, had heard something different once, a sound that wasn't quite a sound. It came to him in dreams, like a gentle note resonating within his chest. It wasn't from this world, and it didn't belong to any single language. It was like being called home by something too vast to see. Jake once told him it was probably just a dream, but even Jake had felt it once, a hum, faint and far away. When the sky turned purple before dawn, the two had learned over the years that the stars were more than distant lights. They were witnesses, quiet keepers of stories too big for the land of Ooh to hold. They were the archives of all possible worlds. Some say that when a soul passes from Ooh, it becomes a flicker in the firmament, not a ghost, but a tone. Together those tones form the cosmic melody that sustains existence. The ancients called it the hymn of continuance. It was said that this song kept the boundaries between dimensions soft, allowing dreams to drift across realities. Finn never read these old texts himself, but Princess Bubblegum once told him of them while they gazed through her telescope. She said that the hymn could be heard in moments of pure silence, the space between breaths, between heartbeats. Jake, ever the relaxed philosopher, called it the music behind everything. If time were a river, then the stars were the ripples, visible hints of something invisible beneath. Each one was a memory, an echo of what once was or what might yet be. And sometimes, if one listened with patience, the universe would hum back. That night, as Finn drifted between waking and sleep, he dreamed of walking among those stars. He found himself upon a bridge of light stretching endlessly through the void. Around him, countless spheres of fire pulsed in rhythm, each one humming a note that wove into the next. The melody was infinite, and yet it felt deeply personal, as though it was singing his name. He saw echoes of Ooh reflected in constellations, shapes of mountains, rivers, faces. He saw Jake's laughter written in gold, the Ice King's loneliness frozen in blue, and the Candy Kingdom's laughter scattered like sugar dust. Pause. He even saw the Lich, not as a monster, but as a single lone note in the harmony necessary to give contrast and depth to the song. Without darkness, no music could have form. Without silence, no sound could be heard. In that vision, Finn understood that even sorrow had its place, that every cry, every whisper, every ending fed the universe's rhythm. When he awoke, his eyes were wet, not from sadness, but from the beauty of understanding something too vast for words. Jake stirred beside him, muttering softly in his sleep. "Don't worry, bro. The stars got us." Days later, the two wandered to the top of Mount Cragdor, a place said to be close enough to the heavens that your thoughts could drift upward like smoke. There they found the ruins of an old observatory, its domed ceiling shattered long ago. Inside, the remnants of ancient instruments still pointed skyward, their metal frames rusted by time. Finn brushed dust off a plaque carved in a language he didn't know yet somehow understood. It read, "To listen is to become." He sat down among the stones, closed his eyes and listened. At first there was nothing, only the whisper of wind through broken marble. But gradually something began to rise, not in his ears but in his chest. It was that same celestial hum again, now layered and vast. It was not out there, but through him. Jake felt it too. His body began to shimmer faintly, his outlines softening. They were no longer two figures sitting on a mountain. They were tones in the same chord, notes in the same song. The stars were not watching them from above. They were watching from within, oars. That moment stretched beyond time. It felt as though the whole cosmos had paused to breathe with them. When the hum finally faded, the night grew deeper, but somehow warmer, as if the sky itself had smiled. Finn opened his eyes and saw the world bathed in gentle light. Every leaf, every stone seemed to glow faintly with its own quiet awareness. The stars no longer looked distant. They looked alive, like embers scattered from a single divine fire. "Guess we're all part of the music," Jake said softly, his voice barely more than a sigh. Finn nodded. "Yeah, and maybe when we're gone, we'll keep singing." Jake stretched into the shape of a harp, plucking at his own strings with a grin. "Already practicing, dude," Finn laughed, a sound that joined the wind and drifted upward, perhaps finding its way into that greater melody, the song of the stars. The ancients said could be forgotten but never silenced. Civilizations could crumble, kings could fall, magic could fade, but the harmony continued. Patient, forgiving. It was not a song of victory or conquest. It was a lullaby, the universe soothing itself through endless cycles of birth and decay. And in the soft chorus of existence, Finn and Jake had become verses, not heroes or myths, but notes of kindness, courage, and curiosity. Even after all the battles, the strange quests, the heartbreaks and joys, their greatest legacy was simply being part of the song. That is the hidden truth. The stars whisper to all who listen that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed into a new sound. As dawn approaches, the last constellations begin to fade. The night folds itself gently into memory, and Oo awakens once more. Finn and Jake walk down the mountain, the stars still singing faintly in their minds. Behind them, the ruins of the observatory glow for a moment, as if giving thanks for being remembered. The morning air is cool, sweet with dew. Somewhere far away, a bird sings the same three notes again and again, a tiny echo of the cosmic melody. Finn smiles. "Hey, Jake, maybe that's the universe humming to itself." Jake yawns, stretching. "Or maybe it's just a really talented bird, bro," they both laugh. And their laughter carries far into the waking world. Another note in the endless harmony of Oo pours. And as the sun rises, the stars hum one final time, a farewell, a blessing, a reminder that every story, every soul, every sound will one day return to the music of the stars. The horizon is a thin thread of gold, stretching endlessly between what was and what will be. Pause. The air feels softer here, as if the world itself is exhaling after an age of holding its breath. At the edge of existence, beyond the shifting plains and beyond even the farthest stars, stands a single, impossible tree. Its roots stretch into the void, drinking from the memory of every moment that ever was. Its trunk is wide enough to cradle worlds, its bark shimmering with symbols that move like water. Its branches reach through the clouds, holding galaxies like fragile fruit. And its leaves, oh, its leaves glow with the colors of dreams, blues that remember oceans, golds that remember laughter, greens that recall the first forests after the war. This is the tree at the end of time, where all stories are gathered and where every echo of Finn and Jake still lives. Oars. Finn walks slowly toward it, barefoot upon the silver dust that blankets the ground. Each step makes no sound, yet he can feel the hum of countless lives beneath him. Jake pads alongside him, his shape fluid and comfortable, his expression calm. They say nothing at first. There is a sacred hush here, the kind that even friendship respects. When they finally reach the base of the tree, they see that its roots form an enormous archway. A doorway made not of wood, but of woven memory. Through it flows a soft, luminous river that disappears into the heart of the trunk. Finn looks at Jake. Do you think this is it? The end? Jake tilts his head, smiling in that lazy, knowing way.
Maybe, dude.
Or maybe it's the start of something we can't see yet. Finn nods. He feels no fear. Only a quiet awe, as if the universe has taken him by the hand and whispered,
Thank you for walking this far. They step into the archway.
And at once the world shifts. Inside the tree, the air glows like moonlight caught in water. Threads of light spiral upward, each carrying fragments of a story. Not just theirs, but everyone's. The Candy Kingdom's laughter, the Ice King's tears, Marceline's songs, the Lich's silence, BMO's gentle voice saying, let's play. All these moments float together like a cosmic library of feelings. Finn reaches out, and when his fingers brush one of the threads, it unfolds before him, a memory of two brothers laughing under a blue sky, sharing a sandwich on a lazy afternoon. He smiles softly. Jake watches, his eyes shimmering.
It's all still here, huh?
Yeah, Finn says. Nothing ever really goes away. Pause. Deeper inside the tree, they find a chamber where time moves like a tide. Here, the stories flow in slow waves, overlapping and dissolving.
Each ripple carries the shape of a life, tiny, beautiful,
fleeting. Finn and Jake sit beneath the glowing branches, watching as their own adventures play across the air like drifting clouds. The first time they met the Ice King, the battles with demons, the long nights under the stars, the laughter that carried them through every loss. It isn't nostalgia that fills Finn's chest. It's gratitude. Gratitude that all those moments existed at all, that every joy and sorrow added its note to the great harmony. He turns to Jake and says quietly, "You ever think maybe the universe made us so it could see itself through our eyes?" Jake chuckles.
Maybe, man.
Or maybe it just wanted some company. Finn laughs too, the sound light and effortless. Yeah, maybe both. Pause. Outside the chamber, the tree begins to glow brighter. The stars overhead seem to lean closer, as though listening. Somewhere deep within its roots, a rhythm begins. Slow and vast, like a heartbeat made of eternity. The branches sway without wind, and from them fall tiny leaves of light. Each one drifts gently down, landing on Finn's hands. When they touch his skin, he he sees visions, endless versions of himself and Jake across infinite worlds. In one, they are explorers of strange planets. In another, guardians of dreams. In yet another, quiet spirits watching over children asleep beneath the moon. He realizes then that their story was never just one path. It was 1,000 songs sung across 1,000 skies. The tree is showing him not the end, but the infinite continuation of love and meaning. Jake stretches, his form glowing faintly now. "You feel that, buddy?" Finn nods. "Yeah, feels like home." "Then maybe," Jake says softly, "we already made it." Pause. As they sit in the glowing light, Finn begins to notice something. The tree is breathing. With each pulse, it sends warmth through the roots and out into the void, nurturing new worlds. And he understands this tree is the heart of all existence, and every soul that has ever been lives here as part of its endless rhythm. No one is truly gone.
Every memory is a leaf, every act of kindness a branch.
Every laugh a root. Finn and Jake's laughter is there too, woven through the very structure of creation. And as they listen, they hear it, a faint melody rising from within the tree. It's the same tune they heard in the Song of the Stars, now clearer, richer, more complete. The universe is singing to itself, and within that song are their names, not as heroes, but as harmony. Finn closes his eyes. For a moment he sees all of the rivers glistening, the forests breathing, the people living and dreaming. He sees that everything they did, every tiny moment of courage and joy, has rippled outward into eternity. He turns to Jake one last time. "Hey, bro," he whispers.
"Thanks for everything," Jake smiles. "Anytime, dude. Always." The light around them deepens, turning to gold, then white.
They rise together, hand in hand, and their outlines begin to dissolve into soft, shimmering dust. Not ending, but blending into the light that feeds the tree. And as they fade, a gentle voice seems to echo from everywhere. All stories return to the tree. All hearts return to the song. Rest now, little heroes. Your light will guide new ones home. Pause. The tree glows brighter still, then slowly dims to a peaceful shimmer. The cosmic winds settle, the stars breathe again, and from that sacred stillness, new worlds begin to form, their seeds carried by the memory of two brothers who once wandered through wonder. If you listen closely on quiet nights, you can still hear them laughing in the wind, whispering through the branches of every tree. Glowing softly in every star, Finn and Jake are not gone. They have simply become the silence between heartbeats, the pause between breaths, the warmth in every story that follows. Pause. The tree remains, standing at the edge of eternity, patient and alive. Its roots cradle the memories of all who ever were, while its branches reach toward futures yet unwritten. In its shade, time itself sleeps.